Welcome, everyone. I'm Mike Mershazadeh.
And I'm Ashley Ward.
And you're listening to the What Matters podcast, and our mission
to spotlight top RIAs, wealth managers, and investment professionals who are redefining wealth management.
Join us as we dive into their journey, strategies, and insights.
Whether you're an investor or an inspiring pro, this is for you.
Get ready for impactful conversations on the What Matters podcast. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of the What Matters podcast. I'm Mike Mershazadeh.
And I'm Ashley Ward.
Today, we're honored to sit down with Scott, and I hope I pronounced this right. Is it McKechnie? McKechnie. I apologize about that. Obviously, by looking at my last name, I should have gotten that correct. The founder and CEO of Sabers Wealth Management in partnership with Northwestern Mutual.
Scott's story is grounded in service, from the military to the financial world. He graduated from the United States Military Academy at West Point in 1989 and went to serve as a tank platoon leader in the Gulf War, where he was awarded a Bronze Star with V for Valor in Action.
After serving in both Europe and South Korea, Scott transitioned into financial services in 1996 with a passion to continue serving others, this time through financial guidance and strategic planning.
Now, over 27 years later, Scott leads a team of 8 professionals at 7 Sabers, 4 whom are CFP professionals, collectively bringing more than 120 years of experience to their clients.
Scott, thank you so much. We're truly excited to have you on our show today.
It's an honor to be here and be able to talk to you guys, and appreciate the chance to do this. So
thanks, Scott. Well, we're excited to hear about your story. So let's jump right into the conversation here. Can you share with us and our listeners a little bit about your journey? You know, what led you from the military service to financial services industry, and ultimately now at 7 Sabers Wealth Management?
So I came from a military family even before I went to West Point. My dad was actually in the Navy, and so I'm kind of a black sheep of the family where I went to the Army. There's some other family history there, but I actually have most of my family is like Navy and Naval Academy, honestly. But I did my time in the Army as a tank officer, as you mentioned, and then I decided in around 94, I started looking at leaving the service and did an in-depth, like, what do I want to do next in my career? And I landed on the financial services industry after a very detailed 1 to 2 year process. I'll just say it's very difficult to leave the service, and because especially if that's all you've known, and it is a process to figure out what you're going to do next, and that itself, as any career changer will know, is a difficult endeavor to look and see what you're going to do next. So, so I did a 2-pronged look. I look at the civilian sector in terms of your S&P 500 type companies, and I also did a search on what was going on with the financial services industry, because I always had an interest in financial services. Okay, so in doing that, I got to look and see what the corporate world offered. And to me, at the end of the day, just personally, I felt like I wanted to do something that was more semi-autonomous versus going to change the green uniform at the time to a corporate uniform where you're still climbing the ranks and over time have more responsibilities and more people and longer work hours in that corporate structure, or just like the military structure. And so it appealed to me to go into the financial services industry, where it's kind of the opposite, where you work really hard the first, very, very, very hard the first dozen years. And then the backside of it, you can enjoy a lifestyle of a little bit more leisure per se, and not have to work 100 hours a week, that type of thing. So, but I think at the end of the day, for me, it was just I've always enjoyed finance. And I decided that after an in-depth look at different firms, I landed on going to Northwestern Mutual as a platform that was most better for me, if you will. And that was mainly because of my background and making sure that it was an integrity issue for me. A lot of firms back in those days, which turned out to be true, unfortunately, back in the 90s. All right. So in the financial industry, when you're determining which kind of firm you want to work for, It's an issue of what platform do you want to work for? Do you want to work for a platform that is W-2 focused, which would be your brokerage houses, wirehouses, if you will? Or do you want to work for it as an independent contractor and or semi-independent? Most comfortable for? At the time, and I still think this was a very good choice for me, was the Northwestern made the most sense for my background, for my service orientation, for the integrity issues, and for just being a better fit for me. And as I mentioned, it turned out to be the right call, at least for the time I was in, because a lot of the companies I interviewed with, they're either out of business or they got merged for really unethical issues, frankly. Okay. And whatnot. So, but I did the search. I found Northwestern. I had interviewed them several times. I probably drove the manager nuts and how many times I interviewed him. And I ended up joining the company and struggling for years, because that's how the industry generally works out, is you struggle for the first 5 years. There's like a 19% success rate in the industry, which is not very high. And it was actually, West Point was look to your left, look to your right. One person won't be there. In this outfit, it's look to your left, look to the right. They both won't be there. And the guy to your right, even two over, won't be there either. Okay. That's how bad it is as far as attrition rate in the industry. Okay. For financial services. Okay. So I joined Northwestern. I went through their training. I kind of look at it as I was started off as a defensive coordinator. If I use the sports analogy, I was handling mostly defensive things for clients. That's your life insurance, disability coverage, health insurance, and long-term care. And so I became a specialist in those areas. And then in my early 2000s, I went into the investment side of it, which I characterize as being the offensive coordinator. And if you do both, you're the head coach. And if the person is one of the types that doesn't like the stuff at all, you become their general manager for their family. Okay. So each client you have, you can work with them within the Northwestern system in either of those roles. That may not be the situation within the context of other firms. So.
And so in total, how long have you been at Northwestern for?
I've been with them now 29 years. It will be 30 years next April.
Wow.
And let me ask you this: from joining the firm now, close to 3 decades ago, has there been a lot that's changed in the Northwestern atmosphere, or or I guess a better way to ask that is, what's the sales culture like now as opposed to when you started back in the 90s?
I characterize the industry
right there.
The industry back in those days, really, you had three type of systems, if you will. You had first the agency system with insurance agents that were the financial planners for the middle class for the previous 20, 30 years. And then you had insurance agents with agency system. You had brokerage houses, wirehouses, and then you had the financial planning firms, which were sprouting up at the time. Okay. And so each of them had, like, if you were talking to a stockbroker at that time, their role was mainly stocks. And they were, basically A shares, B shares, C shares on an investment account or mutual funds, or you were buying stocks and even having like a wrap account. And so the culture then was, I guess it's a bad persona, kind of Wolf of Wall Street in that area, in terms of the stock broker side of the house. For the insurance side of the house, where I was in insurance agencies, the culture was, I always thought Northwestern always tries to do the right thing. They have a very good culture in terms of things. But I will say it was more needs-based selling at that time, in terms of what kind of insurance needs you needed. It wasn't really the comprehensive planning that is now, the culture now, if you will. I'm not saying that they didn't do they did some of it back in those days, but it was more needs. Hey, do you need 500,000 of insurance or $1 million? And then we put that in place because it made sense. It was suitable in recommendation. The fiduciary rules have way changed in the last 30 years. That's totally was kind of non-existent at that time, in terms of fiduciary rules. I've always thought that was kind of blowing away. The financial planning side of the house at that time was still an up and coming industry, if you will, and there weren't that many of them. And they had just basically, they're the fee based planners or the fee only planners. There weren't very many of them as far as that goes. So one of the reasons I did go to Northwestern, though, was because I could see where they were going, that they were going to become more of a comprehensive financial planning outfit. And so the base of what I liked, the defensive things, everybody needs those things, generally speaking, even the wealthier folks. So for me, it was a good fit to go start that way and then integrate the offensive side and then become more comprehensive as things have come along. Okay. So hopefully that answers that question as far as that goes. So.
And so you formed Seven Sabers. You have your team now of 8 professionals there working with you, if I'm not mistaken. Tell us a little bit about that. 4 of them are CFP certified. What's the structure of the team there? Do you have junior advisors? And what have you grown your book to? Can you give us a little insight into your practice there?
Yeah, so my practice is up to like 385 million of assets under management. I have, like you mentioned, a team of 7 besides myself. I have 2 professionals that I would characterize as lead advisors in the system, that they also are relationship managers where they take care of certain parts of book of the business. I'm still considered a solo ensemble. Right now, I'm in the middle of trying to make it a multi-person ensemble over the next few years. That's one of my goals, and to get the firm to $1 billion of assets under management. But I will say my main focus really still is to help people as much as possible. Okay. I've always felt like if you come into the business and you say, hey, I'm going to help somebody as a side note, I will make money on the side. And I have great relationships with people because of that. It's just a win-win to me. That it's just a great fulfillment and purpose. But I mean, you do have to look at it from a business perspective and make sure that you can cover the costs and you can cover, as you grow, it's 1 step forward or 2 steps forward, 1 step back, in the sense that every time you add somebody, it's a step back because of the revenue required to continue to grow the practice, if you will. So what I am in, I have some other strategic partners within my practice, one in particular that I do a lot of joint work with. Northwestern is a little bit different, I think, in the industry in the sense that we have a culture of joint work. We're kind of like, think of it like I'm an independent contractor, but within our firm, there's a bunch of other independent contractors. And so that we can do work together. And so now as a more experienced rep in the industry, a lot of those people come to me because of my experience. And then we do what we call joint work, which then helps them grow and then helps continue my practice to grow too. So, and whatnot. So that's kind of where I have an operations department. I have a financial planning department. I have an insurance operations department within the firm to handle different service issues for clients. And I also, within the context of trying to, the 7 Sabers side of it, there's 7 areas of financial planning. So those 7 areas are what I feel like most people there'll be some interest in one of those areas when I talk to folks on things. So that's kind of where I came up with that. The Sabers is a salute to my time in the Army as a cavalry officer, armor tank units and stuff like that. So, and whatnot.
I like that.
So
Make your own mute. Make your own mute.
So,
yeah. So
Really
you
cool.
have this goal of, you said $1 billion, and that's in what? Do you have a time on that? Is that in the next 5 years, 10 years?
I think that the $1 billion is reachable in the next 5 to 7 years. I feel like with the growth of the practice, just from assets under management, as well as what we're bringing in asset-wise, I feel like that's a very attainable objective. What I will have to do, though, is build out the practice to service the clients appropriately and to make sure that we're still doing top-notch, work for folks on that issue. So.
And let me ask you this: in regards to building your practice, you've done that mostly and all organically. Is that correct? Has there been any acquisitions there?
There was some small acquisitions where I had some gentlemen ahead of me that back in the early 2000s they had smaller books of assets under management, which I was able to purchase from them, and so I'd probably say maybe 30 million of assets came from that. Or it's grown to that. It wasn't even that much, actually, now thinking about it in terms of how much assets. I'm definitely keenly aware that is a definite way to grow practices. And I definitely have seen that in the industry taking off as far as younger advisors or even senior advisors like myself looking for places to buy, $50 million to $100 million practices out there. I would be open to it if it came up, but I have not, observed that coming up so most of my growth has been organic per se in the sense of that. So.
And you have two, I forgot what you call them, but like a junior advisor or,
yeah. So in the industry, I think you characterize there's what we call in the industry, it's a lead advisor can be one role, a relationship manager is another role, or what we call an entity advisor. An entity advisor is the newest contract Northwestern put out for the first time in like 100 years. So somebody can come work for a firm like mine and effectively hang their shingle underneath mine and have a different contract where they can build a practice underneath me very efficiently with the support and then help on not having to climb the ladder so hard, if you will. So I characterize the entity advisor as more outside sales, more of a hunting type of position. There's a base salary, and then the hope there is that the majority of the revenue they're going to make is going to be from new acquisitions, new business development. Okay, the lead advisor would be both hunting as well as servicing existing client base, and doing both of those. That's what I would characterize it as. And then the relationship manager is someone who's mainly just managing and helping with the existing client base. Okay. Now, there's different names in the industry for this, by the way. I mean, it's thrown around. Junior advisor could also be one, obviously,
Right.
as a terminology. But the process, generally what I've seen happening is that they become those positions, one of those three roles, and then they might become, depending on a pathway to partnership. Okay. Become a partner. So what's happened in the industry, from my perspective, is that it's so tough to get going, guys, in the industry. Like I just showed earlier about how much the failure rate is, that they're kind of developing these roles, like a junior partner role, to help people get started, as opposed to just trying to start from scratch. So kind of think of it like a CPA firm or an attorney firm would have somebody come in and be an intern first or something like that, or a junior partner, and then get their experience, if you will, and then become a partner inside the firm, or build their own practice in the firm, and then they could break off on their own, or they could become part of the firm that they're part of, if you will. So I do think that is a big part of the industry right now that it could explode, because it is very difficult in terms of, like, if you look at the recruiting, and the recruiting numbers are dismal for a lot of outfits. The Northwestern Mutual has done a great job of, like, our average agent, I believe, is like 40. That's way not the same as the rest of the industry right now.
Right. The average age for the rest of the industry average is 60. So I bet you Northwestern's really kind of, with having the amount of agents that they do, kind of evens out that number for the rest of the industry. So,
well, the issue has been for Northwestern is we have done a great job of developing and mentoring new people, and then the other firms come and poach them from us, basically. In fact, there's some firms, I would say, part of their recruiting strategy is to steal agents from Northwestern, frankly, or reps from Northwestern.
And don't they sign some, Scott? Don't they sign some sort of a non-compete to protect them from because believe me, I've had that. I mean, and Ashley can attest to this. I've had that same challenge before in other industries, similar in finance, where they come to you, they get licensed, they learn, and then they leave. But what I did was I had to learn to make it painful for them, right? And I'm not using that as a word out of being a bully or anything. I'm using it as a term of when you pay $16,000 or $17,000 to get individuals licensed. Not to mention, they're not profitable to you, even on doing really subpar work until, well, at least in the industry we were in, was until month number 7, month number 8, where they could at least assist a senior to the point where they were paying for themselves, right? And then you pay to get them licensed, and it's like, so by the time it's all said and done, you're giving them a salary and everything, and then you get poached. So I think in conclusion to that, I was asking you there, what do you guys do to protect yourselves from that?
I think their biggest thing to do is build a culture. Okay. They build a culture effectively where make it, like you said, kind of painful to leave, because you're just going to, if you do leave, it's just not greener pastures. You're going to have some other issues wherever you go. In fact, at this meeting I went to last month, there was a gentleman who spoke who had done a very in-depth analysis of whether he stays at Northwestern or go to a different firm. And his bottom line analysis was that you just trading one trouble issues for another trouble issue, and you're going to end up making about the same. So then it becomes an issue of what platform or what culture do you want to belong to? Okay. So the Northwestern culture is one where we try to do comprehensive, and we want both insurance and investments, where other folks may not want to do that. They just want to do investments. Okay. In which case the Northwestern may not be a good fit for them per se. And that's a personal preference really more than anything else. Okay. I will say though, that within the context of what has Northwestern done to protect their agents, I can't really say they've done something super painful to make it so that the person leaves. It just doesn't exist. Okay. That I know of in the industry. Okay. This goes back, and I can't remember I don't remember the name of this, but it goes back to the early 2000s where the brokerage houses got together and they made an agreement, because they didn't want to go to lawfare per se. They made an agreement that they weren't going to go take everybody to court to fight out people leaving. Okay. And I don't remember the name of the agreement that they did, but it's still out there on the internet, probably somewhere, where, they made an agreement amongst themselves to say, hey, if you poach us, we're not going to go take them to court. And so that is the wirehouses definitely did that. I do know that the wirehouses have made it more difficult now, though. They have made it more painful if a person's going to leave. At least that's my understanding of it. Okay. And whatnot. So.
Yeah.
And so with building your team there, to reach your goal, you mentioned you're going to have to build out your team. Where are you looking for building out that team? Are you looking to, bring your current team up the ladder and filtering more from the bottom? Are you, looking at probably bringing in another advisor that's a little seasoned? How do you plan to go about that?
Kind of both of those things, Ashley. I would just say that there's an issue I have a very wide base of clients that I'm definitely trying to reduce that and go reduce the silo and go up vertical more. And that's not a value judgment. It's just as we can help some of those folks more than other folks. But the blessing of our industry, or my business for Northwestern, is I can pass those folks off to other people in our system to be taken care of. Okay. So I'm not just kicking them to the curb per se. At least as far as the lower part of the practice, if you will, as far as revenue generation goes. So I will try to grow the practice organically in terms of continue to prospect within existing client base and referral wise. But I also will, I am looking to see if I can attract other professionals to join the firm, and they could bring a book of business in too, of course, or maybe not. I think that is one of for the industry, I think that's like a really home run position. If they could find somebody who has the $100 million of assets that wants to join a bigger firm, I think that's a big opportunity within the industry. And you're seeing that on the different websites, FinTech, I think it's called, where they try to, you see firms out there looking for other $50 to $100 million asset firms to merge with. Okay. There's also, because of the age of reps, like you mentioned, Mike, is that there's also a lot of folks in the industry looking for their, succession plan. And so they are, going out and looking for younger folks to join their firm to help them to become a junior partner, if you will, to recommend. So that I would be looking at all those things, as well as I do have some strategic partnerships that they might get bigger as far as that goes, that would also help grow the ladder, grow the amount of assets faster and whatnot. So, okay.
And what have you done? Have you done anything yet for a succession plan with your firm?
Yes, within the Northwestern system, we kind of have to have that in place in
Gotcha.
terms of like if you die or get disabled, as well as more hopefully living long and prospering. And in which case there is a plan in place for that. It's continually gets updated as it goes, as it continues to grow. So I do have some junior partners that could step in to take over, or really even a partner, really in this case, that would take over if something befell me, and more positively that they would buy me out in the next, probably in 7 to 10 years or so. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, my last question for you here today is, wait a second, I totally just blanked. But Scott, so my last question for you here today is, if you had to give a piece of advice to someone just starting in the industry, what would that be? What do you think is the most valuable piece of advice for those young bucks, or just anyone who's transitioning and really starting their career right now in wealth management?
I would say that they have to determine first what platform they want to be part of, right? And feel comfortable with that platform that they're going with, whether it be the Northwestern or the under wirehouses or RIA type firms. They have to be comfortable in that. That's the first thing. And the second thing I would say would be they have to do the activity and be prepared for the activity, okay? It's not usually given to you on a platter on this business. It just isn't. You have to build it up. In the sense, you have to run the numbers, okay? So that's the activity necessary. And so you have to put your head down, in my opinion, and work hard to build out the client base. If you don't do that, and try to cut corners or do things that you're not going to be successful, honestly, because this business will basically chew you up really fast if you try to cut corners or try to do something to try to build it faster in some get rich quick way, if you will. So there's nothing that really substitute to doing the activity, seeing people, and helping people. Okay, so
thank you.
Thank you.
And that's coming from the military guy, so it's not an easy business, we know.
No, I mean,
well, Scott,
I will say, I'll throw them under the bus a little bit. The younger group, they want to hand it to them on a platter. They don't. It took me 20 years to build this. Okay, it didn't happen overnight.
Right.
And the younger group just says, "Oh, I'm going to come in," and they expect it to. The only way I think if you could would be to try to buy a practice, right? if you wanted to try to speed up but then if you do that, then you have an issue of maintaining all those people, right? You still have to go see them all. You have to service them. They have to connect with you, and you have to provide value. And if you're not, you're going to lose those people. And so I don't see any fast way to, I've seen it in my career where people try to cut corners and try to go the fast route, and it doesn't work. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, Scott, it's been a pleasure having you on the show here with us today. Thank you for sharing your story, your wisdom with us and our audience.
That was my pleasure, and I appreciate the chance to help the industry as well as to talk to you guys and anytime. So.
And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the What Matters podcast. Be sure to stay tuned for more inspiring stories with leaders like Scott. Thanks, everyone. Take care.